Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dynamis Pod. This is Robert. Today I have for you a treat especial, Mr. Joel Gaines out of Tucson, Arizona. Joel, if you would, please introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah, so I'm an Army dude, Gulf War guy. I did commo early on in my career, and then switched to intelligence. While I was in intel, I got to do some pretty cool things. Deployed to the Persian Gulf as an intel guy, a Russian area specialist. There weren't too many Russians in the Persian Gulf at the time, but there were some. And then we came home, and since then I've climbed the corporate ladder. I've been an AOL optionaire that got his entire life tanked during the tech bubble burst, and been working really hard. I've got a couple of brands. We've got WarLizardTactical. We do training here in Tucson, Arizona area, and throughout the United States. We've just started Forward Resupply, which is a supplements company. It kind of leans on the veterans and just people who just like to work hard. And then JoelGaines.com, which is where we have Joel Gaines books, and we can talk about that whenever you're ready.
Very good. Awesome. So like I said, I appreciate you coming on the program. Going down the list, some of the questions that I wanted to ask you definitely was Chaos Terrain, one of the books that you've written. I believe that might have been your first book. That had been in your mind for quite some time. Maybe tell the listener a little bit about that. So I want to start with it and then move through. You're going to end up having 3 books, it sounds like, coming out.
Yeah, I've got 4 coming out.
Okay.
In pretty rapid succession, I hope. I mean, a lot of it kind of depends on the production schedule, because I'm not producing them by myself anymore. So Chaos Terrain, we started with an idea about 1995, 1996, and it started with a simple sentence. And I won't say what it is because that'll ruin the book. But
Sure.
it started with a simple sentence. It was like, what if? And, I wrote probably 3-4 chapters, because that's what you did back then if you wanted to submit to a publisher. And I've submitted it to a couple of publishers and got their feedback and looked at what I submitted, and I was like, yeah, I hate it. The idea is cool, but I just hate the writing. And so fast forward, 30 years? I don't know how many years. It's been a lot of years. Fast forward to that, and my kids are grown and, leading their own lives now. And although we're all still very close and work together on a lot of things. And I decided I was just going to, do what some of the other people I saw on Twitter, I never call it X, do what some of the people on Twitter were doing and write books. And I was like, I always wanted to be a full-time writer. It's really hard to be a full-time writer if you're not a part-time writer.
Exactly.
So I decided to write the book, and I started writing, and I was like, I got a beginning and I got an end, and both are pretty cool. What I don't have is a middle. So I spent a lot of time writing the middle. The first release was, so the first edition, I self-published it, and it was I would say a rather short novel. Maybe it was a novella, I don't know. It was whatever, shorter than a novel, but not a short story. And then it did okay. I got some modest push on that. And then I went to Wargate Books, and there is a large Wargate author community on Twitter, and
yes,
they took me under their wing, and they said, this is a cool story. We'll publish it. We need 30,000 more words. I was like, well, that's half of what I already have. I had maybe 67,000 words at the time. And so the second edition has 30,000 more words, mostly in the middle, mostly talks about the dynamic of the crew and kind of lets you get to know them a little bit better before it gets into the action. And we did a little bit more foreshadowing, and it's just a better told story, that second edition. So the first edition, you'll know you have it if it's like the somber, sort of almost a steampunk looking cover. And the second edition, you'll know you have it because it's got like bright colors and so like a real artist made it. And so it's doing pretty well, even though it's been in publication for a couple of years now. It's doing really well. It's bringing in, I would say, some modest proceeds, and of course we got to pay back the publisher for all of their support and the voice acting and all of that stuff, but it's doing pretty well. And I've managed, I don't know how, I've managed to keep interest in it while I was writing the sequel for it, after I said I wasn't going to write a sequel for it. And so
that sounds like a Mark Sibley tactic.
Yeah, so kind of.
I'm not going to, but then, hey, by the way, I do have a couple ideas about that.
Well, I wasn't going to write a sequel, but everybody was like, yeah, but, I know you didn't write the book to write a sequel, but the ending kind of demands one. And So I thought about it for a long while, and I started on another series called
Mm-hmm.
the Codename series or the Nathan Kong series. And so I have Codename Crimson Sun coming out
Mm-hmm.
August 18th. So for those of you that are watching this after August 18th, you'll already be able to get it. It is in pre-sale on Kindle and
Mm-hmm.
Kindle and audiobook right now. I think the voice actor did a really good job, really good at the accents across the board. I think it's a good story. I'm a little leery because it delves into areas that I don't know a ton about, and I had to do a lot of research. And I didn't want to back that research with reaching out to a bunch of people in that field because I was afraid I was going to ruin the surprise and nobody would buy it. So
Certainly.
I always cross my fingers when I release a book, especially something that I've done most of the research on my own. And I always tell myself, Joel, I hope you didn't screw it up. So we'll see how it goes, but it's a good story. I have probably 10 books ready in that series to write. I'm already working on the sequel in that series, which is codename Rising Shadow. But in
Mm-hmm.
between then, I went ahead and just knocked out a good sequel to Chaos Terrain. It's called Starlight Event. I don't know. I'm going to try to submit it to editing in the next couple of weeks or so. I've been saying the next couple of weeks for the last couple of weeks. But I'll tell you a secret. I love telling stories. I I'm I'm constantly telling stories in how I teach and how I approach the world and interact with people. But I don't really like writing books that much. Like
Sure. That's
the
the hard work part of it, huh?
yeah, so the writing process is hard for me. And I know that there are a few authors out there that just they're like, I'm going to bang out 7,000 words today. And I'm never that guy. 700 is a good day for me, like a really good day. And but with Starlight Event, I just put my head down and I just wrote. And I write by scenes so that if I had an idea somewhere, I could just knock out that scene and I'll worry about where it goes later. And the way I describe it to people is if you take 3x5 cards and every 3x5 card is a scene, and I'll just have an idea for a scene and I'll just pound it out, and then I'll just put them on a table. This is a virtual table, but I'll put them on a table and I'll decide what order the 3x5 cards go in. That's kind of how I write.
Yeah. So you do like the poster board style setup, like the comic books all used to do, and then the people at Disney actually used to lay things out that way.
Absolutely, and it's good for like
Yeah.
development and all kinds of things, where you're prioritizing a lot. But then I found a piece of software that allows me to do that on screen. So, I can write more than what I could fit on a 3x5 card.
Exactly.
So I'm going to have my fourth book out before Sibley has his fourth book out.
Nice.
Don't tell him I said that because I don't want to.
I won't say a word.
Yeah. So don't tell. Don't tell.
Yeah, don't tell.
But that's kind of how it's going. I do have some other books that I'm working on. Actually, for my subscribers on Twitter, we are writing a historical fiction serial killer novella
Okay.
about a guy who's real in history named Bela Kiss. And we're telling his story up
Okay.
until the point where he disappears after the First World War. And then
Okay.
I'm going to continue the story with pure fiction.
I got you.
And that's a fun write.
Yeah.
That's super fun because
That's almost a choose your own adventure book. That fits right up my alley.
it really kind of is.
Yeah.
And then I have some westerns, and then I have a political intrigue that's based on the Soviet era.
Okay.
And I don't know if those are ever going to get written. I'm kind of an older guy. I might run out of time. We'll see.
You're not much older than I am. So it's interesting that you started out and you self-published and you ended up having someone else publish. If you can let the listener or the audience know, those who might be watching, what that kind of looks like in order to do that, because there's some people that are out there that have a book inside of them. They
Sure.
just haven't actually worked up to the courage part of it to put it on paper yet and to maybe do self-publishing first. I've had multiple different authors now on the program. Most of them have been doing automotive content, but tell the listener maybe a little bit about how that process went for you.
So I'm kind of a frugal guy.
Mhm.
Like that would be an understatement, what I just said. I'm a pretty frugal guy. And
You're not
so,
taking toilet paper apart, are you?
not yet, not yet.
Not quite.
But
Not quite.
I'm also kind of the kind of guy that thinks I can do pretty much everything. Whether I can or can't is beyond. And I've gotten into situations where I thought I could do pretty much everything and I couldn't, but I wasn't going to not do it. An example of that is I remodeled our master bathroom in only 25 months. And
It's not bad.
it's because I didn't know how to do plumbing or tile or any of that stuff, subfloors,
Yeah,
any of
it's
that.
a learn as you go program there.
Learn as you go and then make mistakes. And that was probably would have been cheaper had I just gotten somebody to do it. But
But you got it done?
I got it done and I got the book written. So I wrote the book. I did the art.
Mm-hmm.
Kindle makes it pretty easy to, if you've got a little bit of patience, it makes it pretty easy to self-publish a book.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided I wanted to make an audio. And I
Yes.
tried AI, didn't
Yeah.
like it. And it would have cost a lot of money to get AI to do it. Maybe it's easier now. I tried writing it myself, and even though I'd done talk radio for many years, I don't like the way I sound on the radio.
Sure.
And
Not many of us do.
And I didn't like the way I sounded when I recorded my voice, especially when I started doing accents, because everything just sounded like a Russian accent.
So it's not all we have. Sometimes we do that, and that's all we really have. We have like one accent that we can do.
That's all I had, right?
Yeah.
And I said, this is dumb. So I started talking to other people that had been published, and they were like, well, reach out to Wargate and see what they think. And I reached out to them, and they were like, yeah, we've kind of been waiting for you to reach out to us. And so what Wargate does, and they're very different. They're not a traditional publisher at all. They're very lean forward.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did is they said, look, here's our plan for your book. You're going to have to write more words. And they executed the plan. They have cover artists, they have voice actors through Podium, they have editors, they have proofers, they have early release readers, to see if
people that can promote, people that can hype, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, there's that, but also to tell you whether the book is good or not, because your editor is always going to be your cheerleader, right? And my editor, Lauren, she's amazing. She's, when I get discouraged, she's right there and just, handling me, making sure that I'm staying productive. But we need people that also tell you, this part of the book kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And so with writing, I learned that it's all about the rewrite. And really what you need to do is just write. Just write. Because you're going to rewrite that thing 4 times, 15 times. I'm on version 15 of the Starlight event, and you're just going to rewrite. The writing is just do it. If you just do it, you'll get it done. And then somebody can help you with the rewrite. And it might be somebody who's I'm not talking about my editor at this time. I'm talking about people that could proofread it for you and find all your mistakes and stuff like that after you've done your own editing. They won't be very kind about it because they don't think you can do it.
Right.
But that's okay too. You try not to get your ego involved. So so it feels better having a publisher because all I have to do is write the book.
Yes.
But the downside of that is, I'm not good at sharing. Like I wasn't good at sharing my toys. I don't like to share my food. I don't like to share money, but you have to learn how to share. And so if you don't want to learn how to share, write your own book. Find some people that will give you brutally honest feedback. Take their feedback and decide what you want to do with it, and then self-publish on Kindle. There's a draft to digital, which is also pretty good for getting you in places like Barnes and Noble and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you don't mind sharing, you can probably take a lot of stress off of you by having people that can do a lot of the things that you would have to learn how to do.
Yeah. So when it comes to self-publishing and then having someone else publish, a lot of people always say that having a publisher, the biggest problem is the time to actually go to publish. Like the difference is like if you just write the story, you edit it, same thing you just talked about, have someone else kind of go through it, then you can kind of directly go publish it yourself. But like you mentioned earlier, like there were some things that were missing that you really wanted to put into it. They wanted you to put into it. And to be quite honest, I'm not usually a sci-fi person, not this time in my life. And I recently re-listened to the book because you were going to come on the program. And to be honest, I mean, it kept my attention the entire time. I listened to it in 2 days. So
Yeah.
it's a really good book, and I like the storyline of it. And I am glad that you're going to come out with another one because I'm definitely going to be a buyer. I like that kind of thing. So I listen to books more so than read them now. It's just easier.
Yeah.
I think yesterday morning I mowed the lawn. My place was really overgrown, so it took me like 4 hours to weed eat and mow. I listened to 4 hours of a book while I'm just allowing my mind to kind of actually soak in the book. I'm taking notes on the thing through Audible. I mean, it's amazing to be able to do that kind of thing. So I think that's
Yeah,
good.
I enjoy the support. That took me a little while to get used to it. I enjoy the
Sure,
support. Honestly, 99% of us are not really making much money on our books. We don't.
sure, yeah,
It's that's not really why we write. I think people maybe start writing because they think they can.
yeah,
But I mean, I get lunch money every now and then, and it's not because somebody else has taken all my money. They're taking a ton of risk up front without asking for anything from me, and so it's a rev share kind of thing. And maybe that's not everybody's experience, but that's mine.
sure.
But maybe
Well, it's a Pareto rule type of setup too. I mean, it's, to go and get your book even in an airport, Barnes and Noble set up, because that's where everyone usually buys their books unless they're buying them from Amazon. Uh,
sure.
excuse me. It's like that's to be number one, even in that area. It's almost like a, flash in the pan or it's a lightning strike because it doesn't always happen.
Yeah, I mean, you got to learn how to market. You got to learn how to treat your writing as a brand. And I haven't been very good at that. But as I'm building other brands, I'm starting to think, well, you know, those books are part of a brand too. And it's not just
Yeah,
WarGaines, it's JoelGaines.com as well. And
exactly.
so I'm learning a lot through this process. And, I probably should have started all of these things that I'm doing now. I probably should have started them 15 years ago. But I don't know that the resources that made the things I'm able to do today were available 15 years ago. Like
You're probably correct.
15, 20 years ago, it wasn't that easy to start a business. I tried. I've been a serial entrepreneur since the 90s. And even with the advent of the internet, that didn't really
Hmm.
make it easier because it's still like old times when a lawyer opened an office and he went and hung out his shingle. The internet's not much different from that. Our capacity to consume shingles is greater, but also with that comes our capacity to ignore them. So
That's true.
it's easy to start a business. It's harder to run one.
Definitely. Well said. So changing gears, I want to move over to the training aspect. I end up training people a little less lethal at this point, but it's one of those things where if you're not naturally gifted to do it, if you don't have the skill that's been, handed down to you, that can be quite difficult sometimes. And you train people to that they may end up having to use deadly force. So if you would let the listener, let the viewer know a little bit about what War Lizard Tactical does and kind of the markets that you actually operate in.
Sure. So WarLizard Tactical is sort of a labor of love. There's a story about it that I don't want to tell because I cry every time I tell it, but it's a labor of love, and we've been at it since 2019. And not only do we train people, but we train people to train people. So so all of the people that train with us are
Hmm.
unpaid interns. They come from all over the state to teach our students, and in return, we train them. And so we have some of them that just want to hang out with us and do the thing that we do and be a part of the community that we're trying to establish. We have been establishing, and others are looking for something that they can do later on or something they can do as a side gig, but they do it for us. And it's been very cool. It's super humbling to have the caliber of people that we're associated with come out in the most egregious weather conditions that Arizona can supply weekend after weekend after weekend and make the courses happen. So the company is family run. We get together over dinner once a month and do planning, and everybody's kind of got their role that they play. And it's just been very beneficial to my growth as a person. So what we teach, we have
Hmm.
a progressive training system. So everybody starts with us at the fundamentals, and if they meet the requirements to move past the fundamentals, we give them a little gray chip. It's like a casino chip,
Yep.
and that's our communication to them that they're ready to train beyond that level. And then we have, much like a challenge coin, much like a belt system in martial arts. So you don't show up to take one class and you're black belt. You know, there's that progression.
Exactly.
And we started out about 80% males, and now we're about 50-50. We don't do any women's only classes. Everybody trains the same standard.
It's all co-ed.
It's all co-ed. And we focus on practical application of skills, techniques, and tactics. A lot of a lot of a lot of training groups will focus on the marksmanship. I can't teach you marksmanship in a day. I can teach you things that contribute to marksmanship in a day, but
Yeah.
I can teach you life-saving tactics in a day. So that's kind of where we spend most of our time. We'll teach people how to be better shooters, but we'll teach people how to be better thinkers.
Hmm.
Avoidance is always the first thing that we teach. How to keep your ego from being part of the equation,
Certainly.
awareness, all of those sorts of things. And honestly, so we also teach we teach 3 levels of trauma course, and we're nationally certified. We have been nationally certified trauma care providers, and we teach that trauma course is probably the most important and our favorite thing to teach. It's not
Yeah.
even the gun stuff. Like the gun stuff is great and it's fun and it's educational. It's beautiful, and people it clicks for them, and you can see their whole attitude about what they're doing and how we're doing it change. But that medical stuff is probably the thing that we love training them.
That's it's funny you say that because I was actually going to ask you that if you didn't bring it up. So, do you guys go into like the CPR, the sucking chest wound, the how to put
All of
on single-handed, how to put on a actual tourniquet, and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we cover the NATO algorithm, the March algorithm that's used in our military and throughout NATO for our level 1 course. Our level 2 course is a ton of applications, repetitions of those things. And then our level 3 course for that is a tactical medicine where you got guns involved, you got people moving, you got a lot of communication going on. And it's just a really good dynamic. I think you're more likely to give Uncle Charlie chest compressions at the family reunion than you are to need to pull your gun. But let's teach you how to do both of those things. And we do survival type stuff and preparedness type stuff, radio, hit and caching, land navigation, all of those sorts of things.
Using old style maps and actual compasses and all that type of thing.
Maps, compasses, protractors, all of those sorts of things. Yeah.
Things
Case
that work
count,
when the grid is down,
absolutely. And we do the
or in
same thing.
case the government's got a stingray,
Right. And
which
we
I
do
have
those
actually, I've been under
communication.
before.
So we do that for the communications, and we've got some like harvesting water in the desert and things of that nature.
So, do you guys teach pistol? You teach carbine classes? Do you teach anything over and above that?
We have shotgun as well. We do clinics.
Okay,
We used to do shotgun courses, but after COVID, nobody showed up to shotgun courses anymore. During COVID, shotgun courses were full because that's what people could get their hands on. Shotguns and ammunition weren't that big of a deal, but now, so we'll do a 2-hour clinic every now and then on shotgun, and that's usually enough to get people to get some repetitions with the fundamentals and get them patterned with buckshot.
sure. One of the other questions I want to ask too is I've got to go do a little bit of that kind of stuff in the past when I lived in Ohio. We did a kill house. We went in and did simunitions, that kind of thing, with another group that was around there that was local to me. One of the things that I've noticed, and you've probably seen this a whole bunch since you do this for as part of your living, of all the things that you do, weapons that are set up incorrectly, or people that are holding them incorrectly, or any of that. How do you treat that when they show up to a training and it's like they're maybe their magnifier is not exactly right on their rifle. Maybe they don't even need it for what you're doing, that kind of thing. What do you end up doing with that?
So there are some things that are blatantly incorrect that you can do with firearms as far as how they're set up. And with everything that we teach, we kind of explain why you would want to do it differently. And we kind of we always tell people, I mean, if you don't have a system for doing things, just listen to how we tell you to do it. Now you have a system that you can evolve from. And if you already have a system, just take what we're telling you as a suggestion. And if it works for you, great. And if it doesn't work for you, that's fine too. But it's pretty much a you do you boo world. Like, we can't tell you that this is the way to do something. We're teaching you a way to do something. But our main goal really is to give you a scaffolding.
Sure, like a skeleton.
Like a skeleton. And then you can pour in everything else you've ever learned from anywhere else and see what works and what doesn't work and what you need and what you don't need. And those things that help you improve, those are the things that you focus on. One of the things that we talk about quite often is it doesn't matter how good you are, or how experienced you are, or how long you've been around guns. You have two kinds of violent encounters when it comes to guns. You have a shooting and you have a shootout. And a shooting is where bullets are going one way, and a shootout is when bullets are going two ways. And if I can teach you three things that give you a quarter-second advantage, that could be the difference between you being in a shooting and a shootout. Who wouldn't want to learn those? And if you don't want
Yeah,
to learn those, you don't want to learn. And then we're
that's
probably
true.
not the place for you.
Yeah. So when it comes to weapons themselves, Brother Clay really likes to use like the paintball style or the plastic BB style to
Sure,
train.
sure.
And I think that's really great as well. When I first seen it, I was like, I don't know about that. But then as you listen, and he makes tons of sense, hey, why would you go out and spend thousands of dollars in ammunition when you don't really have to? You're really trying to get muscle memory to doing what you're doing. So that,
Yeah.
if you buy a quality gun like that that shoots those, plastic balls, it makes sense to do it that way. What is something that you tell people about actually doing dry fire training? Because I noticed that my own self, and this is part of the other question I want to ask. USPSA, I got to go shoot. I don't know, for probably a year, maybe a year and a half, because I wanted to go somewhere where I could actually pull my weapon from holster and shoot while on the move, while under the buzzer. I
Right.
think the buzzer makes a huge difference because it's amazing what it changes. All of a sudden, the dynamic has completely changed. Now you're under this thing, you're under the timer, and you make mistakes. And luckily, because you're in an area where you got an NRO, you got your range officer there, they're watching everything that you do, and they're making sure you don't flag anyone. So it's really good for training. And I think that people that are in these we see these good guy with a gun style shootouts. Those people typically have used their weapon before multiple times. It's not like some of the police departments, they qualify once a year, which is unbelievably crazy to me. But going out and shooting, the question would be is what's the dry fire training that you try to tell people? And then basically, do you think USPSA's got a great handle in some part of their training to maybe defend themselves?
Yeah. So the first part of your question, we believe very heavily in a trifecta.
Hmm.
And we believe so heavily in it that we created an app to help people train at pro.warlizardtactical.com. This is a
Nice.
subscription app, but it's not super expensive really, and certainly worth looking at. But here's the trifecta. You dry practice to get good. Dry practice is what creates that memory, what informs the OODA process, to use a cliche,
Hmm.
so that you have a very informed repeatable memory for those manual alarms when it comes to the firearm. So you get good through dry practice. And that dry practice, if you've got a blowback airsoft gun, whether it's
Yeah.
got BBs in it or not, that you can change mags out, manipulate, and get comfortable manipulating, that's pretty cool. That's a good thing to do. Well, even without it, just repetition, repetition, repetition is how you get good. And then you go to the range to measure the effectiveness of your dry practice. So when I go to the range, I take one box of ammunition and a plan. From
Hmm.
compressed ready, I'm going to press out, pick up my sights, pick up my dot, whatever it is that I'm shooting that day, halfway out, target focus versus front sight focus, depending on what I'm working on, and I'm going to fire 3 rounds, and we'll see where they land. We'll see if my memory on that is good. Trigger manipulation, all those sorts of things. Have a plan when you go, and don't spend your ammunition foolishly. And then it doesn't take a lot of time and money to actually train and get some trigger time as well. And then you go to courses. That's the third piece. You go to courses to get people's eyes on you. Why do you do that? Is that a training scar? What is it? What could we do differently to make you more successful?
Mm-hmm.
And to teach you skills and tactics that you may not know or understand. Everybody thinks they know a lot about skills and tactics, but they are a lot more regimented than people tend to believe. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think courses are training. Courses are important as well. But all three of those things can make it so that you don't have to go to the range a ton, because range isn't where you get good. The range is where you prove your training. And then you don't have to go to courses a ton either, because that's where you learn new stuff. So the second part of your question, I believe that everything that people argue about contributes to your survivability. Hunting contributes to your survivability. Training at courses and going to the range and dry practice contributes to your survivability. Doing competition contributes to your survivability. The caveat is if you are successful at those things. If you
Certainly.
are not successful in competition, maybe it still contributes, but it probably doesn't contribute very much, because you are maybe out moving your ability to shoot. Gear matters, but not very much. I I have given away all of my really good gear, all my ex Umbris and
Mm-hmm.
Spiritus. I've given away all of that to people who needed gear, and the stuff that I run consistently is off of Temu. It's off of Amazon, because I don't need the expensive gear. I don't need it. I'll buy it. I'll give it away. I don't think I have anything left that's expensive other than some inner belts from Ex Umbris. I've I've had a lot of their gear,
Yeah.
but
Red
I don't.
balloons.
Red Balloon. I don't. Unfortunately, I don't have any of their stuff, but I have a lot of Safari Land and stuff like that. We give away a ton of gear. We probably give away about $5,000 or $6,000 in gear, ammo, and training certificates, vouchers a year.
That's a lot.
Maybe more. And if you've seen our website, you look at our prices, they're a little bit mind blowing, because we're not to make money. That's not why we started the company. And for us, it was more about making sure that people got out there and at least got fundamental level training without cost being a barrier to that training. And so I think all of those things contribute to your survivability. And I think the arguments about which is better, or which does or doesn't, I think all of those are kind of dumb. I don't think those arguments are fruitful. I think they're ego driven. The competition guys that say that only competition matters are the competition guys. And the
Yeah.
hunters that only say hunting matters. I mean, but you think about it, if you can shoot, move, and communicate, which is what you have to be able to do in competition, that's cool. But there are things that get injected into that, because you only have a 180-degree range, and you've got berm restrictions and
Yeah.
things like that. So your safe directions aren't all the possible safe directions. Those things can invent training scars. Hunting, where you're stalking, you're having to move, stealthily, you're having to camouflage yourself, you're having to use different kinds of weapons. Those things are super important when it comes to survivability, especially if we're talking about a world without rule of law, where
Yeah.
you are your savior. And then, training is training. Training is learning. And if it's good training, it's good learning. And if it's bad training, it's bad learning. So that's my
Yeah.
thought on that.
To dovetail into that, even I think going out and being a little more physically fit and all that kind of stuff goes into you saying almost every single day, hydrate or dihydrate.
Hydrated.
Yeah. And also just going out and camping, like being in the outdoors. Cause like you said, if it goes to the point where there's lawlessness everywhere,
Well, when you camp,
you may
you
not
have
be
to.
able to stay where you're at.
Absolutely. When you camp, you have to regulate your water consumption. You have to figure out food. You have to do a little bit of preparedness stuff.
Yeah. A lot of critical
Like,
thinking involved.
all of that counts. All of that contributes to me. And I think get the widest breadth of training you can possibly get. Prepare yourself a little bit. Think critically. Most people think they're going to survive a world without rule of law, and I think that it's most people aren't going to survive it. And if you're the guy surviving and you look like you're surviving pretty well, then you become a target. So community is a big deal, because you can't shepherd all of your resources by yourself 24 hours a day. It's not possible. It doesn't matter how remote you are. Somebody's going to find you. So all of those things count. And I think our approach to training is to make the learning environment as conducive as possible to learning. We use something called the EDGE method. So we explain, demonstrate, guide, and enable. All of our instructors have started with us as students. All of our range safeties, everybody that helps out, all of those critical components every weekend started out with us by taking courses. And it's been pretty cool. We have 300 people on a Discord that have been people that have trained with us, and we maintain that community. We try to help people, but I think that progression matters. I think that having a good foundation that you can use as a baseline matters, and I think measuring those things matters as well, which is why we created that app.
Yeah. Well, I definitely wanted to have you on. Like I said, this is part of knowing who your mutuals are, right? And at least we're on this video call. We're not right next to each other. But are there any dates that are coming that you're going to come to Pennsylvania?
So I'd love to come to Pennsylvania. We just need to find a place where we can train.
I got you.
We are a little scary to people who are more in the traditional gun club and range. We run a hot range. Our students they have loaded guns in their holsters all day long. We have we haven't had any unsafe incidents.
Yeah.
We are very careful. We try to explain things very well so that people know where they can and can't touch guns. But we don't have the blinking lights with you have to wave the dead chicken over your head while you don't touch anything and stand behind on yellow. We don't do that because these are grown-ass people with guns, and we're going to treat them like grown-ass people with guns.
Yeah.
There
It's a
might be
mindset. I
it
mean,
is.
people have no idea. Like this, you see this all the time too. I'm sure, like in person, everyone sees it on X. Everyone says all the time, I could do this, I could do that, I could take somebody out. I'm the big badass. But a lot of times, that's all bravado. That's just it's talk. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Because
Well, when you look at them,
your main goal is to not take someone's life, like
right.
you were saying earlier.
Exactly. So when you look at them, they're ate up anyways. They probably can't. Yeah, absolutely. And that ego forward thing is the thing that we try to train out of people. I mean, we can't, but we try to give them a different perspective. Use the three butthead rule on the road. If you got people, once you get to that third person that's cut you off and you're angry about it, maybe they're not the butthead. Maybe it's you. And so we try to create some introspection. We try to give people a mission. And if you have that personal mission, like what is your goal at the end of every day? Just at a very base level. And then let's measure everything you do as either a risk or a reward contributing to that goal. And if you can think that way, then you're probably not bumping egos with somebody else. You're probably not flipping people off in traffic, things like that.
I look at it as like an Odysseus rule. Like your rule should be is to get home
That's
safely to your family, your loved ones, period. Now, whatever happens in between then, you may end up having to take care of business. However, your rule would be is to try to get back home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we talk about preparedness, we talk about mental preparedness, we talk about emotional preparedness, spiritual preparedness, financial preparedness is preparedness. So you got to be ready for all of those things. Yeah. So you asked about dates. Sorry. So
no, it's fine.
This coming weekend, we are going to be in Colorado Springs. We still have openings for that.
Very nice.
And then we're in the Tucson area quite a bit the rest of the year.
Okay.
We are in Georgia in March. We're in Alabama in April. We'd love to do a North or Central Florida in January.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be back out to Montana in July. But if someone comes to us and says, "Hey, I have a space," we'll come out if we can come out. If we can in any way make it happen, we'll come out. And
well, I'll scout Pennsylvania and find out, because like I'm about an hour west of Philadelphia. So if you go further east, it's a little more tight and strict and all that kind of stuff. But where I'm at, I'm in a small rural little town. It's an old steel town, and there's plenty of people that are around that probably have property. So that would be more than welcome.
We don't move much. We've been in some pretty austere environments. Actually, we're in Texas in November.
Okay.
We've been in some pretty austere environments. We send whatever is needed. So if somebody doesn't have target stands, we send target stands. We send backers. We stop and get uprights at Home Depot on our way in. we send whatever's needed. We've bought a little tent shelter in a porta potty, little bucket potty thing, for classes before. So whatever people need, we send out. All we ask is that, they have a little consideration for the fact that we're putting a lot of money into a new market. And if it goes well and we get attendance, we'll come back. We have some
Yeah,
places where
definitely.
we're going to have to do 2 courses there in order to meet the demand, and we have other places that we're still, developing.
Yeah. So back to the military a little bit, and then to try to tie into the books also, because like it sounds to me like we were talking earlier, you got a little bit of Tom Clancy going on inside of your head. You got some David Baldacci, I can't remember how his name's pronounced, and then you definitely got this, especially with this sci-fi side of the what you wrote in Chaos Terrain, what's coming forward, it sounds like. You got this technical side that it really seems that you'd like to write about. And the storyline in Chaos Terrain is right up my alley. That's stuff that I've studied literally since I was in like 7th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, those types of things, and kind of the paranormal a little bit. But all this training that you've gathered when you was in the military, how does that help you be a better trainer, be a better writer? I mean, you said you're a little bit aged, but you've got some stories now that you've been able to put together, and you can tell, and then even things that didn't maybe happen, you can actually like whip these right up and like kind of a Louis L'Amour, like you even mentioned you're going to do some Western. So what's that look like? The training that you received from the United States government. No, he's not a
Yeah.
Fed. He is a
So
Fed, but it's not a Fed.
so I was in the Army,
Hmm.
and I did some OGA work as well. And I think what I probably took out of the Army most of all probably doesn't contribute very much to my writing or anything like that. I've always been kind of a creative kid. Read a lot of encyclopedias when I was young, things like that. And
So did I. It's not good. Was you an only child?
well, for a short period I was, but
I
I
was
just
till I
I
was
did
10.
myself a lot,
So
yeah. But
yeah,
I think with the military,
dictionaries, thesaurus,
all of that.
Encyclopedia Britannica.
And
Yeah.
some from the 50s and some from the 70s, and don't
Yeah.
it's not even right anymore. But I think what I got from the military was just the ability to squelch my emotional reaction to tough times. And perhaps to my own detriment sometimes. I like to tell people that I got a lot of mason jars inside my brain with the lids that are just jacked down super tight. And people say, well, you could give a little bit. And I said, look, if I loosen up that mason jar lid, I don't know what's coming out. You just don't know what's going to come out of it. And so I think that that could be perceived as an aloofness sometimes, but later in life, I became much less of that. And I decided I was going to be someone that people remembered fondly as a kind person, as a helpful person. And that's kind of how I've tried to live the last, I don't know, 10 years. Well, since my kids were born, maybe, maybe,
Sure.
maybe since my daughter was born. I don't know. It's been a little while. I've been working on it. And I
Yeah.
think,
But it's a huge change. I mean, not to cut way off and go down an entirely different road, but nowadays everybody's like, well, you're not supposed to have kids. Don't have any kids. Don't have any kids at all. It's
yeah,
like I understand it's expensive. Everything's expensive,
sure.
but like there's
If
a
you
ton of
wait till
people
you're
that are
ready, it's
that
not
are
going to
on
happen.
Twitter. Yeah. There's a ton of people on Twitter now are like, no, 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 wait a minute. Like you're missing out on one of the greatest blessings you possibly could have. Like,
Absolutely.
why would you do that to yourself? And it changes you, changes people immensely. So,
It does, and I didn't know how much until much later on. And my my kids and I, we get along really well. We always have. We're very much each other's cheerleaders, and my both my kids are grown. They're starting families of their own. They have
yeah,
houses. They have good careers. They really have taken what their my wife and I have tried to teach them and run with it. So I've been very fortunate in that. And, but I wasn't always a smart guy. I was a knucklehead. I was maybe not even a good person earlier in my adulthood, and I decided I didn't like that person. I didn't want to be that. And so, I'm spending my later years trying to be a good person and trying to impact people in a positive way. And I think that has more affected my writing than anything. But as far as the nerd stuff goes, the technical stuff, I love to research things and make them mine. And that's what I did in Chaos Terrain. I hope I did it in Crimson Sun. We'll see. But In the code name series, there is some domain knowledge from experiences later on in my military time that maybe have been on the periphery of things that I was doing, people that I worked with, and organizations that I worked with.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in Intel, I was a Russian area specialist, so I went to DLI in Monterey, California, and learned how to speak fluent Russian. I went to
Yeah.
little immersion
Da.
courses after that, and learned how to speak, more fluent colloquial Russian. But you don't learn to just speak the language in those courses. You're encouraged to study the psyche of the target language. So what the people are like in their brains and in their hearts. And I'm half Russian, so I think that and a little vodka during my training helped. We were encouraged to have a shot of vodka before we did oral examination and things like that. And it's cultural. And so well, I think the experiences my experience is going to more directly impact the Codename series than it did the Chaos Terrain.
Mm-hmm.
Chaos Terrain, I just wanted to tell the story that I had the first sentence beginning and the first sentence ending for. And I just wanted to see if I could do it. And once I learned that I could do it, I decided I was going to do more of it. And I don't know if I'll ever be a full-time writer because I have so many other things going on, but I'm going to write full-time. I don't know if
Yeah.
that makes sense, but
No, it does make sense. Absolutely. So doing the things that you've done in your life
sure.
and the military, I'm sure that has to help a lot with the actual training when it comes to the weapons training as well, not just the writing.
Yes and no. I think so. Contrary to popular belief, for probably 90% of the military doesn't do a very good job of giving you weapons training. They give you familiarity,
I've
and
heard this.
some people excel in spite of military training. And then you have those guys that are the special operators at some level or another. You have your special operators, and then I call the infantry, they're your juggernauts. Like they're fully kitted up and they're kicking doors and handling business like a juggernaut does. And then you have your special operators, which are more surgical or more clinical in their approach. And those are the guys that are probably really good with weapons. And then even on some of I've talked to dudes that were special operators that were like, yeah, I suck with a pistol. And I can shoot rifles pretty good, but I'm no good with a pistol. We've had people that were rangers and other military professions out at our courses. We get law enforcement guys that come out, Department of Energy guys that come out from California and train with us. And the organizations tend not the government organizations tend not to be very good at that. And there's a lot of reasons for that. In the military, you're just slapping guns in the lowest common denominator hands when it comes to war fighting.
Yeah.
And hopefully they sort it out. I spent a lot of time with my teams on weapons. We went at our own expense quite often because there's just not money there to get ammunition for POGs, personnel other than grunts.
Yeah.
But what it did give me is a basis from which to learn and a basis from which to unlearn as well, I guess. I actually I've been touching guns for 40 years. I'm a mediocre shooter. I'm okay. I'm not great. Some of the younger guys that are on our team are really, really good and are also good at connecting with people
Yeah.
that are their age. So we let them do that. We have a certain way that we want our content treated, and we have a certain way that
Certainly.
we want people to be approached. And then once they learn that, we let them do it. We have our own certification program for our instructors. So after they get their national certifications, they have to go through our 4-month-long process. For most people, it's 4 months. Some people, it's longer. And they have a qualification that they have to do that we won't talk about because if anybody wants to do it, I want it to be a first time they've done it.
Yeah. Let it be fresh.
Yeah, and see if they can do that. And if they can do that, and they go through our educational process, and they go through our auditing of them teaching courses, then they get to be certified WarLizardTactical instructors. And for me, that gives them a place from authority that they can teach from. They're not just NRA guys, not just USCCA guys, not just dudes that just went to the military and came out. So yeah, I think the military is not as good at training people as they could be. Hopefully that changes. But I mean, when you have people that their primary job is not to shoot people, like they should probably spend most of their training on their primary job. So
Right.
where do you draw the line?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. And honestly, I mean, and it's no offense to anybody that's in right now, but I don't think that the military, for the most part, has been used as a military for a really long time. It seems that they've been police actioning quite a bit for a long time, except for parts of the GWAT. So, like you
Well,
said, I mean, it's probably better that they don't teach people to shoot a whole bunch at this point.
I think I think a lot of what we're experiencing now is because of globalization. So we're the
Definitely.
gentler army. If you look even back when I was in, most of the people that taught me were Vietnam guys.
Hmm.
And my first duty station was Second Infantry Division in Korea, and there were a lot of Kimchi GIs and a lot of Vietnam guys that were out there, and
Yeah.
they they didn't brook any attitude. They didn't allow people to express themselves. There's a certain way to do things, and if you did it that way, you're probably going to make it. And that doesn't exist these days. Everybody's got feelings. Everybody's special. Everybody's
Yeah.
it
Trophies.
in some of the special mission units or something like that, but maybe even not there because those guys they're dependent upon to be creative.
Hmm.
And so I don't know what the answer is, but I think our desire to be loved
Yeah.
and not be like the Roman Empire was, in the first, 300 years or so of its existence, I think that has ruined our lethality. And it certainly has ruined our objectivity when it comes to having the will to go to war. We haven't had the will to go to war for a long, long time, for decades. And I think globalization and just wanting to be looked upon as a favorite place amongst the world has kind of created that.
Yeah, and it's almost a detriment to the country, it seems like, especially at this late date. Like you were mentioning Rome, it's like we're at 476 AD at this point, and Otis is at the gate, or inside the gate, I should say. But
Absolutely.
so the last question I've got for you is, what is Joel Gaines's legacy? And that's a left field question I did not put in the notes, but I like to ask people, kind of like, what is the legacy?
So I'm a very staunch Catholic. Like wondering if the 11th crusade is going to happen, sort of Catholic, right? And so my wife and I have managed to launch two families beside our own into the world that are even stauncher religious Catholics than we are, and are living quite conservative lives with fairly traditional roles within their household, and also living successful lives with careers and stuff like that. And it's all a balance.
Hmm.
Like we're not like off in our own little cult, like you have to be able to make
Right.
your way in the world and not be the weird one. But as much as we can within society, we have, as if launching from a bow and launching again from a quiver, shot arrows into the world that hopefully contribute to bringing at least American society back round a little bit towards people with humility, people who care for one another and care how they speak to each other and care how they talk to each other, and who have convictions about things and live their life based on those convictions, things that I wasn't very good at when I was young. And so hopefully my legacy is the family line, the people that come after me, retain some of that, doesn't get diluted, and are just good people amongst other people,
Hmm.
leaders, people that can show that you can love other people and you can garner respect and you can show respect, and there's no weakness in that. I think that is what I hope to be my legacy.
It sounds like a good one.
We'll see. I won't be
We'll
around to
see.
see it. That's what I
Well, at
hope.
least you're around to see this portion of it anyways, to start. So that eloquent statement, is that out of Proverbs? Is that out of Psalms? I can't remember. It's out of one of the two. Children as being arrows in the quiver.
Yeah, somebody told that to me. There was a guy who was a security guard at a place where I worked.
Yeah.
He was a deeply religious older man, and he said that to me, and it stuck with me for 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that, isn't it? Well, that's a wonderful place to wrap it up, Joel. If you would drop down a couple plugs real quick, and then I'll make sure I put all these things in the description. So it's JoelGaines.com.
JoelGaines.com, resupply.com, WarLizardTactical.com. And yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad we got a chance to connect. It's really cool.
Absolutely, I'm very appreciative that you came on. So that's us. We're out.